Hi, my seniors. So I know, gosh, this is sunlight is bright in my face. Hi, everybody. This is such a hard class to do without having our normal discussion time, and so I'm having to do it this way, which is a little more difficult to do. But let me explain a little something first. When I assign the information for you guys to read and then to respond, that's the best way. That's the meat and bulk of what this class is. Typically in class, we'd come back, and the next day everybody would bring up questions that they had as far as what you've read, or you'd want to talk about your opinions or your thoughts on something, or maybe something you didn't quite understand, something you didn't agree with, and then we would have some debate, some questioning, some clarification on those kind of things. I don't really want to have virtual meetings. I mean, I suppose we could, but what I've been doing is I'm reading through your responses, and I'm just pulling out some of them that I think are interesting and worth clarification. And there's some doubling up on ideas and things like that. That's what those responses are for, so that I can kind of help you understand this a little bit. You can still send me questions after this. And the PowerPoints and the PowerPoint note sheets, what those PowerPoints are portions of the book that I just took out and condensed the parts that I don't want you to have to read. And I try to put it into a format that's easier for you. And I normally would be sitting in class and you'd be taking notes on this and we would talk it through as we went. But it's important that you see these things. I could always not have you do the note sheets if I understand that you're looking over and reading those PowerPoints, and maybe I could just ask you guys for, is there something you don't understand here, or what do you think about this? I guess I could leave that up to you guys, but you're going to have to let me know if that's what you want to do. You're going to have to send me an email or send me a little Flipgrid video or something of that nature, because I don't want it to be too overwhelming, because this is supposed to be a cool subject and a lot of fun. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go over those points that you guys brought up that I think are worthy of talking about. And this is questions on human sexuality in the church. And I won't do this for every single thing that we do. We were on break last week, and so this is just what I pulled from that first week that I think is important. And over spring break, I didn't want to spend time doing this. So I'm going to address these here, and then I will post this for you, obviously, because you're looking at it right now. If you have questions about anything, though, and you want to know, you just need to send me an email. But if something's not working, like if you can't access this video or whatever, you need to let me know in advance if it's to do with your assignment, and that way we can work it out ahead of time, not after the fact when things are beyond being past due. So let's talk about this for a second. And I don't put who these are from, so you remain anonymous, which is fine. This says, St. John Paul II, in his excerpt on homosexuality, was frowned upon and not very common. And now it's accepted pretty much by society, but this world today is a whole new world compared to that one. And this is someone's response that I'm reading straight from. Well, just FYI, St. John Paul II was around in the 70s and the 80s. And yes, it's become obviously much more in the forefront of everything. And this goes on to say, nowadays a man can marry a man and woman to woman. And personally, I don't have a problem with this, but the church does, which is understandable. But nowadays it's looked at as bullying. The church believes that man is for a woman, which yes, they are, but nowadays the world accepts a gay community, and it feels like the Catholic Church hasn't and won't. But I'm not saying they have to, but it's like they're the last group to and will always be that way. So, the church believes that God is the author of marriage. The Bible in one of your readings is really about marriage from Genesis to Revelation all the way through. And if we think about what marriage and sex affects in our lives, we've talked about this before, it affects everything, absolutely everything. And so the church sticks by its teaching of, you have a man and you have a woman. And in that little diagram you guys had to do, where how do we image the Trinity? It's the man, the woman, and the children. And our bodies physically are made to come together, like physically made to come together. A lot of how we're put together biologically, mentally, whatever, we have our strengths and weaknesses, because when the two come together, mentally, physically, whatever, they come together to make a whole. And so that's how the church is going about this. This right here is driving me crazy, but anyway, squirrel. So the church has to go by scripture. And part of this is that, yeah, we can't change. We can't change the Bible. We can't change what God has given to us, because then that would be changing him. We have to adapt to him. Now, that being said, the church accepts gays, accepts transgenders, accepts all of them, because they're human beings. And it's not bullying to say, I love you, I accept you as a human being, but within our church and within our sacraments, we can't celebrate that, because we don't believe that that's how it should be. And it's the same thing for people who live together. That's not okay. We'll get to that later. But it's the same standard for people who are gay as people who are single. The exact same standards apply. They're not supposed to be sexually active at all. So it's not that we're the last group. It's just that we're following what we believe God has set out as to what marriage is supposed to be. And there should never be bullying. And there should never be put downs. And people shouldn't be made to feel less of a person because they're that way. And unfortunately for most of society, that has taken a long time. And that's a sad situation. But as we grow and continue to grow, that's, how it has to be, to love one another. So that's the first comment that I pulled that I wanted to touch on. Second one, and this is a response from someone. Adam and Eve didn't cover themselves because they were ashamed of their own bodies. They covered themselves because they were ashamed of the way they were being looked at by the other. They were being looked at with lust. They were being looked at as an object that could fill their desire, and they wanted to prevent that. Kind of awesome. Our bodies are beautiful. Oh my gosh, they're beautiful. And Adam and Eve didn't become ashamed of them until they were being looked at as an object. And we are never to look at another human being as an object for our personal use in any way, shape, or form. We're supposed to love and give 100% of ourselves, and not expect anything in return. This person also went on to respond. Let me scroll down a little bit. Another thing that stood out to me was where he talked about how Adam named all the animals, and he realized that none of them were like him, and he was completely different from all of them. But he wanted someone like him, someone he could love. This really stood out to me because that still applies today. People can go through life and see millions of faces, but they still look for someone like them, not physically speaking, but in mind and spirit. And that is the absolute truth. And there are millions of people that we can match up with in mind and spirit. And we seek love. I taught you guys that before. That's what we're geared for. We're designed to love. And so we crave that love. And the ultimate goal is to come back to the Creator. For that love to be completely and totally fulfilled, and that yearning goes away. So I thought that was a really cool insight. Okay, So this next one says, one thing I do not understand is why Eve listened to the devil. God had given her everything she needed. They had one rule, and that was not to eat from the tree of knowledge. What more could they have wanted? Or why didn't they just ask God for what they thought they needed? Well, we always want what we can't have. And that's the unfortunate truth of who we are. And Satan tempted Eve by saying, God doesn't love you all the way. He doesn't love you enough, or he would give you everything that you wanted and everything that you desire. Well, he knows better than we do, and we don't always get what we want because it's not what's best for us. The tree of knowledge meant that they would have knowledge of what bad was. They would have knowledge of death. And she didn't know that. She didn't understand that. Neither did Adam. And so there kind of is the crux of the situation. This went on to say, I lost my place. Another thing I do not understand is why the devil tempted Eve and not Adam. Or did he try to tempt Adam and it was just unsuccessful? I don't know. It's because women use their wiles to convince their man to do something. I'm not sure. I think because of how we're constructed mentally, women are just more nurturing and we crave that connection and that love, maybe more, not more so than men, but just in a different way. So that's my guess on that. I don't know. Maybe that'd be a good question for Father Eric. All right, next. This is, again, someone's response. I don't agree that sex, should happen before marriage, but we have grown up in a society that tells us it's okay to have sex before marriage as long as you're being safe. I don't really know where I stand in this because I see it in a point of it being okay doing it with your boyfriend/girlfriend that you love. But at the same time, I have always been taught to wait until I am married. This whole semester is about this, and we'll get to that. This is what I really don't understand because I'm getting two different options and I have to choose my viewpoint, but at this moment, I'm not so sure what to decide on that. Well, hang on, because we're going to talk about that a lot to help you to make a better decision for yourself. And you've got to remember there are reasons behind why people don't want you having sex before you get married. And there's a reason that God asks us to wait. And we're going to explore that in much more depth later on. And you gotta look, there's society saying yes, and God saying wait. We don't get to bend his rules. We have to conform to him. Okay, next. We need to respect our bodies by taking care of them. We should only give ourselves to the one that is meant for us. We should love them and they should love us. This should be the person that you spend your life with. You will create a loving environment with them and raise children with the help of God. And yeah, that's part of it. Respecting our bodies. Knowing who we want to give it to. Again, that's going to come up later, but I thought that was a very insightful response from somebody. Okay, number 6, talking about sex again. This is great for those who want it, but what about those who don't? Maybe some people want to have a life where they love multiple people and never have kids. That's what everybody wants. They don't want the responsibility. They don't want the commitment. They don't want the work that it takes. And we can love lots of people. Just loving them physically is not the best way to go for a million different reasons. Again, we're going to look at it in more depth. Okay, maybe they want to stay alone and keep to themselves. Maybe they can't leave their house due to a government shutdown and never find them. This government shutdown will end, I promise you guys. Stay off Tinder. Anyway. Most people love to find the perfect person for them and live happily ever after. A lot of times they think they do, and then after they have sex with them, they realize they don't actually love them. Yeah, because sex isn't love. You crazies. Ugh. That's what this whole thing is about. That's why you're supposed to wait. Again, we're going to get more into this, but having sex doesn't mean an automatic guarantee of love, folks. It just doesn't. It complicates everything, and it makes it worse, way worse, when it ends. And the living happily ever after, well, that comes with salvation, but here, living happily ever after with a spouse, it's not always happy. And yeah, as a lot of you guys know, it sometimes ends. What we're going to be working on over the course of this is to learn how to make the best decision in order to have a better shot at that happily ever after, instead of just going along with infatuation or, oh, it's all emotional. And no, it's not. It is not all emotional. So again, something we're going to learn as we go. Okay, next response. I wish the world was perfect and you could easily find your soulmate and spend the rest of your life with them. Number one, don't want to bust your bubble. There's not one soulmate. What, are there 7 billion, 9 billion people in the world? And if you really think there is one person out of those 6 to 9 billion people in the world and you have to find it, Lord Almighty, y'all can't even find Where's Waldo most of the time. There are so many soulmates out there for you. You just have to decide which one you're going to pick. And when you make that choice, you have to make that choice every single day until one of you dies. There's not just one soulmate. There's not. There are a lot of soulmates. You just got to pick the one that you think fits best and you're ready for. Okay, and this goes on. There's now so much evil stopping that from happening, finding your soulmate, that it is extremely hard to stay holy. Actually, when you make the decision to stay holy, it's easier. When you make the choice, it is easier because then there's nothing else to worry about. There's just nothing else. It actually is hard, but not as hard as people like to make it. Nowadays, everywhere you look, there's a fake person with an evil hand ready to take you down the wrong path. Don't follow them. Don't follow down the wrong path. You can do this. Even though everybody tells you you can't, you can. A path towards sin and hate, the path away from God. Although it is hard, we must find our way to God's path and his plan. Well, guess what, seniors? You had a lot of time, a lot of people telling you how to do it and that it's not hard. Jesus never said it was going to be easy. He always said it was going to be hard. He promised us it would be hard. But when you let go and you let God and you pick his way, it kind of does make it easier. So anyway, that's the lesson for today. Those are things, like I said, responses. I only picked 7 out of all of them, which isn't too bad. I want to do this again in 2 days. If there's anything you have a question about or you want me to discuss, send me an email. Let me know. I love all you guys. I miss you. I love watching you in those daily videos. It makes my heart happy. Watch each other's. Check in on each other's. They're pretty cool. Okay, keep in touch, and I will see you in a day or so. Bye.